The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod. We're webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. It is Tuesday and we're very excited to be here this morning. If you've been looking for our auditions from shows for the last couple of days, we haven't been here. So the last show that we did was last Wednesday. For those of you who watch us on a daily basis, I want to make sure that you know that. In any case, thrilled to be back and so much to cover today because a lot has happened in our absence. But I want to remind you that this show is meant to be a place where you can come and get information and help and support for the things that you need to know when you're dealing with autism. And we look at autism from a 360-degree perspective, whether you are working with a child who's on the autism spectrum, whether you're a parent of a child on the spectrum or a young adult or an adult on the spectrum, whether you yourself are on the autism spectrum. We want to be a resource for you to get good information and to know all the positive things that are out there that you can connect with that will help you to create the progress that you want to see in your life. That's really our mission here. The whole show is meant to be interactive. Emily is going to cycle through some of the different ways that you can connect with us here on the show. I'm going to remind you that one way to watch us live is at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, and we are live there from 10 to noon Pacific time, that's 1 to 3 Eastern time, and you can do the math wherever you are in the world. You will see that the show is there on the computer screen. For some of you, depending on what kind of device you're using, you might have to click to make the show start. You'll see the most recent show there, but you can also search other shows that we've done recently on that site as well. Next to it, though, is a white box. That is an interactive box. You can put your cursor there, type whatever you want, hit enter, and it shows up magically here on my screen. It is free. You do not have to log in. No one's asking for your personal information or your credit card. We have no way of knowing who you are, so you have complete anonymity. Now, the good thing about that is you can ask whatever you want and feel absolutely no trepidation about that. The more challenging part is if you want us to get back to you with information, you will have to give us an email address, a phone number, whatever. I have a way of editing that before I show the audience. So we'll never give your personal information out, but please make sure when you write something that you reference it. A lot of you watch the show through the night when we're not here, and I don't know at which point you're commenting, so make sure that whenever you pose a question, you're specific about what it is you want to know information about. Okay, and again, there are lots of other ways to connect with us, whether it's on YouTube, Blip TV, on iTunes, all free downloads. We are also on Roku, and we have more ways that we're coming to you very soon. In fact, there is a new provider that is going to be putting together a bunch of different autism programming and giving it to you, and they want to do a little bit of studies on what you like, what you don't like, and they have given us the opportunity to offer a small group of you a free Roku. This is a device that you hook up to your television and it gives you access to many things, including our channel and other people's channels, but there will be a new channel that will feature a lot of different things having to do with autism. If you would like to win a free Roku by participating in the study, please contact us here at the show. We just have a limited number to give out, and we'll be happy to hook you up with a free Roku. And again, it's going to be a first come, first serve. There are terms to it. You must agree to participate in the study, which means that you must be willing to be part of a focus group that will be via Skype. So you won't have to leave your home, but you will have to participate and answer some questions about the programming that you watched. And you must be willing to watch some autism programming. So there you have it, a free Roku. in any case, lots of different things for us to talk about today, not the least of which, a little bit later on, we're going to be talking about all the hoopla about the guest assistance pass and what's happening with Disney parks. So that will be coming up soon. But as you know, if you watch the show, I always like to remind you that while I am not an expert in autism, I am very passionate about the subject because my son was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2.5. And if I hadn't gotten access to information, and I was very lucky to get access to the information, I don't know where we would be today. Where we are today is a much happier place than where we were. He is now 10, almost 10 and a half. And so we're talking about 8 years that I have been on this journey. And what I knew about autism beforehand would have not filled a thimble. And I continue to learn, but I am not an expert. I don't know that I ever will consider myself an expert in autism because on a daily basis, I am reminded of how much more there is to know. But I want you to know I'm really passionate about helping you guys to get access to information. So feel free to write in your comments, your suggestions, topics that you would like covered on the show, and we will try to find experts to talk about those different things with you. But we do like to start every morning with something that I fondly refer to as the jargon of the day. This is when we take on one word, one phrase, one acronym, and we try to make sense of it within our world. There is so much jargon on this journey, right? And just when I think that I have reached a place where I have the jargon under control, I'm reminded that no, there's so much more jargon. It is the bottomless pit. But it's important that we understand some of these terms as they relate to us and as they relate to the loved ones in our lives, because we will be more efficient, more effective if we can save time and money, right? Because it's the thing we never have enough of. We never have enough time. We never have enough money. And knowing what these terms are when we're meeting and talking to experts saves us that time and money. So we take it a little bit at a time, just like how we teach ourselves and our children. We take things down to small bite-sized morsels so we don't overwhelm ourselves. All right, and we put it in context. What does this mean in our lives? So today's phrase is model prompt. All right, what are we talking about? We're not talking about runways. Our actual definition for this is physically demonstrating the desired target response. And our working definition for this is demonstrating the behavior that is expected of the child, providing a model, if you will, of the desired response that the child can imitate. So it is something that we do as a teaching tool. If I'm asking a child whose receptive and expressive language are challenged to do something, it is as if I am saying something in a foreign language to them, because for some kids, they can't quite catch the modulation of the tones of our voice to be able to sort out what it is that we're saying. We've heard lots of young people on the autism spectrum talking about when people would talk to us and it sounded like gibberish. Have you ever spoken to somebody on a phone and for whatever reason it's muffled and you can hear them talking, but being able to decipher what it is they're saying? Not likely, right? So as we're teaching language and helping children to be able to access language, both receptively and expressively, we want to make things as clear as possible to them. So sometimes we might ask them to do something and then we demonstrate it ourselves so that they begin to understand what it is that we're asking them to do. So if I say to a child, touch your nose, and to them that sounds like I'm saying, hand the finger, right? So I want to say, touch your nose, and then I do it myself. And then I might want to do a physical prompt to them and have them, guide their hand gently up to their nose to touch it and reward that. But a model prompt is when I myself do it to myself. So if I say, touch your back, and I go like this to myself, that is a model prompt. It can be very effective as a beginning step in teaching a child something. It helps them to access language. It helps them to be compliant. It is a great teaching tool. We must not be reliant upon it. Nobody ever wants to be at the point where their child, throughout life, we're having to model all the behaviors that we want them to do. But it is a great beginning teaching tool. one of the many tools in our tool belt, the model prompt, modeling the behavior that we want to see. Very effective. We always have a question that we like to start the day off with, and that we love to hear your answers on Facebook. Today is no different. Our question today is, what fine motor skills do you need to work on? And this can be you yourself, what you need to work on, or what your child needs to work on. Of course, the fine motor skills are the things that you do with your hands and your fingers. And think about all the things that you do throughout the day and how nimble your fingers are. I'm taking piano lessons right now, and it is requiring me to do a lot of things and to move my fingers independently. And so I'm really working on my hands in a way that I haven't in a very long time. For my child, there are still things that he struggles with fine motor because they're not as reinforcing to him. I know that the muscles are there, and that he can do fine motor things. But for instance, when he's buttoning a button on his jeans, it is not his favorite thing. He would rather have pants that are elastic and that he can pull up because he just doesn't want to be bothered with buttons. So I have to make it reinforcing for him. He's able to do it, but will he do it in all circumstances? Not necessarily, right? But it's important that we make sure that the skill level is there first. And I get into discussions frequently with the OTs at school, the occupational therapists, because a lot of times they're the people who are going to deal with those fine motor skills. And they'll talk about how they're concerned about my son's fine motor skills because he doesn't demonstrate them consistently. And I always say to them, well, when he's doing a Lego, he's able to take those little one square Legos and put them together in a way that I have difficulty with. So I know the skill level is there. We just need to bump up the reinforcement to get him to do it on a more regular basis for things that aren't as reinforcing to him. And it's important to know the distinction between those two. But getting those skills in place first is really super important for our kids. Of course, there's lots of lessons and lots of toys that you can use to work on fine motor skills. We're going to be talking a lot about toys in the coming weeks. I can't wait to show you all the things that we haven't planned for the holiday season. We always have a topic of the week. Our topic this week, all week long, we're going to be talking about motor skills and building motor skills. There are lots of different types of motor skills. We just talked about fine motor, there's gross motor, there's visual motor, and there's oral motor. And what we see is that we can be teaching our children all kinds of lessons, but if our children have gotten behind on any of these motor skills, it will greatly affect their ability to access all of the other things that we want them to have access to. We talked a little bit, I think 2 weeks ago with Dr. Grampachet about when visual motor isn't there for a child, that we will see things like a child toe walking when visual motor is compromised sometimes. That isn't always the case with toe walking, but sometimes it is. And we'll see handwriting to be challenging if there's visual motor. Being able to ride a bicycle will be challenged. Being able to sit up or stand up straight can sometimes be compromised with visual motor. For a child who doesn't have oral motor in place, when we've got an expressive language and they're trying to communicate their needs, but oral motor isn't in place, they're not going to be understood, and it will be very frustrating for them, and they will go back to tantruming to get what they want. So all of those motor skills, super duper important, and we're going to take a little bit of time all this week to be talking about them. But today, some of the things that we have in place, we have a very special guest who's going to join us in a little while here on the show. Bradley Albert is going to be talking with us about a new app that they tried out at a summer camp this summer. And it is, I'm looking for what the actual name of, it's called NameGames. So we're going to be talking with Bradley Albert from Brooklyn, New York in just a little while. We also have our healthy eating tip because it's Tuesday. We have to love that. And of course, as I mentioned before, we have some very important autism news talking about the Disney Guest Assistance Pass. I know you've heard a lot about this. We're going to give you the latest news on what's happening with that. All of that and ever so much more after these messages. Stick with us.
Hey guys, for the month of September, I figured I'd show you guys how to make a task completion chart to help your kids get through the hardest parts of the day. Parents have been writing into our host, Shannon Penrod, the hardest parts of the day are waking up in the morning, after school, and getting ready for bed. Please keep in mind you can always modify the task completion chart to focus on the skills that your family needs most. The template we'll be using today to make the task completion chart you can find at facebook.com/autism-live. All right, so let's get to it. The materials you'll be needing are the template, cardstock, scissors, hole puncher, glue, pipe cleaner, Velcro, and photos or images. We find it more reinforcing for kids if you use images of themselves doing the task that you're trying to get them to complete. So what I have here to start off are photos of myself doing all the tasks that we're going to add to our task completion chart today. The first step you're going to be doing is printing the template from facebook.com/autism-live. I have it here, and the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to trim out the top. We don't need that, that's just totally excess. Now that I trim my 3 templates, I'm going to label each one with a different part of the day that we're focusing on, such as waking up, after school, and getting ready for bed. Now that I finished labeling the templates with the appropriate time of the day, I'm going to attach the photos that go with it. For bedtime, the tasks I chose were getting ready for school, putting away toys, putting on pajamas, and brushing teeth. Now repeat this for all the rest of the day. Now that I've added the photos to the template, I am taking this along with my heavy cardstock to hold all my tokens. I'm going to line them up and make 3 hole punches. I'm going to take this pipe cleaner and attach the pages together with it. We're almost done putting this together. Next, I'm going to take my Velcro. I'm going to put them underneath each picture. And then I'm going to add 4 on the very edge too. Now that I've attached the rough side of the Velcro to the template, now I'm going to take the softer side and add these to the tokens. You can use whatever you want for the tokens, whatever your child finds reinforcing. They could be stickers, images, spacemen, Pokemon, whatever they like. Before you use your task completion chart, it's really important that you do a preference assessment to see what your child finds reinforcing that day. Once you have that established, then you can tell them the rule for how this task completion chart works. So every time they get one of their tasks completed, they add a token to it. And the way the task completion chart functions is like a token economy. So after they put a token under each one of these tasks, they can trade it in for their reinforcer for the day. Now that you've made your task completion chart, hopefully your child will be able to use it on a daily basis and help them through those difficult times of the day. Well, until next time, craft on. Bye, guys.
Can you see me flying by your side?
Welcome back to Autism Live. I'm holding in my hand a lovely thing called a guest assistance card that comes from one of the Disney parks. This one is from Disneyland. If you're not familiar with what this is, you may have heard about it a lot in the news this last week. This is what made Disneyland the happiest place on earth for individuals with autism, because it gave us the opportunity to get this card and be given different consideration. You'll notice that there's a place here, there are 6 different stamps that they can put here depending on what assistance the guest would need in the park. I can tell you that we went to Disneyland once after my son had autism, and we didn't know about the card, and it was the worst day of my life. But every day that we had this card, it was the most enjoyable trip. It was the only vacation that my family could participate in for years. So I feel very emotional about this pass because it stands for all things that are happy. Of course, the news broke last week that Disney was changing this pass. We were aware of the fact that Disney was considering that because earlier this year the story came out that there were people who were taking advantage of this pass, hiring individuals with disabilities and asking them to give their family a tour so that they could access their pass. I do have to say that this pass didn't always mean that you got on a ride quicker. It meant that you were held in a different area sometimes, or that you came back sometimes. It meant different things for different rides, but it didn't always mean that you got on the ride quicker. For some of the rides, it did turn out to be that, and that's why it was a very prized thing. for both people with different abilities and people who wanted to take advantage of it. So the story broke that Disney was getting rid of this, retiring this, and that they were moving to something called the Disabled Assistance System. Already, I have to say, not as warm and fuzzy as guest assistance. Already we put the word disabled in there, which is perhaps troubling to some who are watching. There were many conflicting stories. We went to the source of information and asked them for a comment. After much cajoling, we were told that the new system is going to roll out on the 9th of October in just a few days. And here is what Disney wrote for us. This is their statement. We have an unwavering commitment to making our parks accessible, to all guests. Given the increasing volume of requests we receive for special access to our attractions, we are changing our process to create a more consistent experience for all our guests while providing accommodations for guests with disabilities. We engaged disability groups such as Autism Speaks to develop this new process, which is in line with the rest of our industry. They will not and have not outlaid for us all of the different things that will entail. There are some answers to some frequently asked questions. How will the new Disney program work? All that they will say is the Disability Access Service Card will offer guests a return time for an attraction based on the current wait time. Guest assistance cards will continue to be effective until October 9th. We look forward to sharing more information as we get closer to implementation. The sources that leaked the information have said that there will be kiosks. We don't have confirmation on this, but there will be kiosks around the park where you will have to go, stand in line, get a ticket to come back to that ride in another time. I don't have to tell those of you who have children on the autism spectrum what a nightmare that will be if that is what Disneyland is considering to do. To say to a child, oh, you want to ride on this ride? Let's walk halfway across the park to stand in line at a place that doesn't look fun for you so that we can get a ticket so we can go back to the ride and stand in line again there. Not what any of us would consider the happiest place on earth. I especially take issue with a line in the Disney Park Media Relation comment where it says, we will be in line with the rest of our industry. I would like to respectfully say to you, Disneyland, what we counted on you was to be the happiest place on earth, not to be in line with everyone else. The reason why we come to Disneyland is because you treat our kids as if they are equal and give consideration and give justice so that our kids can access your park in a way that they couldn't have before. If you are going to be in line with the rest of the industry, we will be back to square one and you will no longer be the happiest place on earth. I urge you, for all of the parents out there who have had access, I have said many times when people have asked me, how did my marriage survive the early years of autism? This is why we survived. Please don't do away with this. Please reconsider. And we hope that they listen. If you are interested, there are petitions you can sign, and if you'd like more information about my personal journey with this pass and the difference that it made in our lives, it's all in the blog that's on our site right now. You can visit it by going here, and I urge you to sign the petition because Disneyland is listening, and if they hear from enough of us, I say in the blog, how many mouse ears does it take? For them to hear us? I don't know, but let's see if we can't find out. I hope you're listening, Disneyland. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, Bradley Albert is going to be with us talking about a new app that showed itself to be really exciting in a summer camp. Stick with us.
Here to do some more cooking. Are you ready? Allergy-friendly fun, and I've got a guest.
I'm Jamie Davis. Yes, I'm her sister.
Today we're all about cooking something really fun and healthy. That's a dessert. We're going to actually use carrots, real carrots, and we're going to talk about how to make the best tasting carrot cake you could ever hope for. So it's really easy. You don't want to buy the carrots that are the baby carrots. Why?
Well, those aren't really carrots. What they do is they take carrots, they mush them all up, they took whatever the carrot looks like, they throw it in a bin, they bleach them, and they process them, and then they have a little machine that makes them into little formed baby carrots. So they're really not born that way.
So this is what a carrot really looks like?
Yeah.
Awesome, good to know. So I just want to show everybody how to make really simply. We just washed off the carrots. They were really dirty from the farmer's market. And we're going to throw them in to our food processor. So what's good about the food processor is that we can go for a really fine grade. So I'm going to go ahead and add the 3 cups of carrots. Then the next thing I'm going to pull in is our gluten-free casein-free flours. I'm using a protein-based flour. Bob's Red Mill is great. I also have my flaxseed meal and pure cane sugar, that's organic. I cut it down already, so you don't need to cut it again.
And one of the reasons why we like to use organic sugar is because, once again, most sugars on the market are bleached to make them look perfect.
Yeah, we don't like perfect.
No.
We like ours.
That's why we like each other.
All right, so we've added our baking soda, baking powder, xanthan gum, nutmeg, and salt. Now, again, why we use the gums is that's the ingredient that actually holds the flour together. Regular flour automatically has like gluten. This is the replacement to the gluten. These are the secret ingredients for the cake itself. 3/4 cup of the crushed pineapple is in there. It gives it a beautiful texture and flavor. And now what I'm using is the oil. What are your favorite oils, Jamie?
I like using coconut oil any chance I get.
Yes.
In fact, coconut oil would be excellent in a carrot cake.
Now what I did was I reserved a little bit of the oil and we placed it in the bottom of that pan so it doesn't stick.
Yep.
But we love the baking stones.
Yes.
Why do we love the baking stones?
Evenly cooks
Yes.
and easy cleanup.
If you like crispy, you got to get a baking stone. I also feel that they're less toxic. So now I'm going to cook this thing at 350 for about 35 minutes. You really want to get it golden. Get it in there. Awesome. So now that we got our cake all done, let's get on with the frosting. Coconut oil, probably the best thing in the world you can eat. It's so good for your brain. One of the best oils that we can use. So I'm going to use a 1/3 cup of the coconut oil, the gouche, and then we're going to do 1 teaspoon of an organic vanilla, Madagascar, and make sure it's alcohol-free. And then what we're going to do is add 16 ounces of organic powdered sugar. And we're going to add our 4 to 6 tablespoons of coconut milk. I'm using the whisk version here on the KitchenAid, which will give it a nice mix. All right, so if you get any on the sides, you just come on in with your little spatula. And this makes the best frosting for the cake. So we're almost done whipping it up. And voila! We are talking good stuff right here. We have the best situation for the best birthday cake, especially if you want to deal with something that perhaps has a little less sugar. You've got a great cake that no one will know the difference. I'm not a decorator. I don't like to decorate. I just want to eat it, and I don't care what it looks like. Ask my family. I'm a family with autism. I just want to eat the cake. Are you ready to do this? It can be your birthday. Yay! So to me,
goodness,
this
so good.
is so good. It's meant to be gooey, as you can see. But what I love about this is a great birthday cake with extra frosting to make your kids happy. A little less sugar and a lot of love. So if you have any questions, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at autismlive@gmail.com, and on Facebook, Facebook.com/autismlive. And then you can reach me and Jamie and get some more ideas from the taco recipe side. So let's have some more cake.
You say howdy, we say hi. Let's get rowdy, let's get wild. Let's get wild.
Welcome back to Autism Live. You know, we always like to give you information about new apps that are out there that can help our kids. Well, joining us via Skype from Brooklyn, New York is Brad Albert, and he is one of the founders of a company that created a new app called NameGames. Brad, welcome to Autism Live.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited to be part of your show.
Well, we're thrilled to have you here. Tell us about what NameGames is and how it can help our kids.
Absolutely. NameGames was created about a year ago. The inspiration for it was to create a really personalized learning experience. We saw a lot of educational apps on the marketplace that were using a rote memorization system. We show you a dinosaur, we tell you a dinosaur, you learn it's a dinosaur. Well, that's great. We wanted to create a more collaborative learning environment. And so we decided we would use actual photos of the people that are in the child's life to teach them about the parental relationships and the friendships that they maintain. At the heart of NameGames was to root it in the strengthening of family bonds and to foster more meaningful relationships in the real world. So we thought that by using actual photos as characters, we could create more real-world connections.
And you use this app at a camp this summer with great success, correct?
Absolutely. Camp Haverine, which is a wonderful program run by the JCC on the Palisades, has a 2-week program for special needs children, and they contacted us in the effort to bring iPads into the curriculum, which was a very new thing for them to do in the first place. And they wanted to find a game that created a collaborative environment as well as something that strengthened relationships with their peers.
And you saw some incredible successes almost immediately with these kids.
It was absolutely stunning and wonderful to watch. Some of the more nonverbal kids who were reluctant at first to even touch the game, after about 15 minutes of seeing people that they recognized inside the game, felt so motivated and so excited. And so to watch that process occur live was something that I don't think I'll ever forget.
I think it's an incredible, incredible idea. Where can people get access to the game, Brad?
We made the game available on all devices, Android and Apple, from tablets to cell phones. You can search in the store for NameGames, one word, it'll pop right up.
Okay, and is there a cost for the app?
No, the app is free to download and use.
How much do we love that?
We want people to play it and to experience it and to help their children learn.
I think it's incredible. We're going to take a short break, and then we're going to come back and talk some more with Brad about what the game actually looks like and how kids interact with it. So stick with us.
And we are here for our inclusion film camp for military children with autism and their siblings.
It was great. We had quite a few returning, but 30 new kids. It was great. We're creating a network, the Inclusion Network, and all these kids are unbelievable. It just gets better and better every year.
Joey Travolta suggested me that I get to teach the animation to some of the people on the autism spectrum. The software I am teaching them is called Flip Boom Cartoon, which is a basic animation software. My favorite part of the teaching is to see Buddy's best work and their special abilities.
It means a lot. It's really congratulations. And I'm proud to see him so social and just not shy anymore. And I think that's really been important to me. And just he's blossomed, and I'm just so proud to see that.
Did you love the camp?
Yes, I did very much.
This camp is like a really good book that you don't want to end.
Welcome back to Autism. Talking with Brad Albert live from Brooklyn, New York. And he is one of the founders of a company that created a new app called NameGames that is really exciting to me as an autism parent, because one of the things that we continue to struggle with sometimes is my son's inability, sometimes he can do it and sometimes he can't, to connect a person's name with their face and be able to recall it. So talk to us, Brad, a little bit about how the game works and how it's helping kids to be able to access more information.
Absolutely. The game is a really simple setup procedure. When you first start the game, you're going to take a picture or use a picture you already have of your child, and then subsequently upload pictures of people that you want them to learn more about. After the picture is in the game, we ask you to use your own voice to record their name. So we pair a familiar image with a familiar audio clip to really enhance the learning experience. Once you're in the game, it starts at a very basic level and it gets more complicated as the child progresses. It will show a picture of Daddy, and it will ask the child, where is Daddy? And the child's goal in the game is to select the correct picture from a background. In the beginning, it's going to be just Dad on the screen. And as it progresses, we have lots of fun little characters that we've called distractors to try and help the children focus and to differentiate between a real world image and a non-real world image.
Well, it sounds incredibly smart. I'm wondering who helped you to put this together? Did you use experts?
Absolutely. We were very fortunate to pair up with a Dr. Rial Canty and a Dr. Jordan Littman, who are both PhDs in cognitive development and psychology. And they sat with us and we kind of innovated this concept together. We all knew there was a way to make learning more personal. And they helped us construct a sandbox, as it were, that would create the ideal educational experience by sharing rewarding experiences while guiding the children down a path where they can strengthen their relationships and face more difficult challenges.
I gotta tell you, I really love this. When my son went off to preschool, he couldn't remember any of the other kids' names in class, and it really made it not reinforcing to him, so he wasn't interacting as much. And what I was told to do by our ABA provider was to take pictures of all the kids in the class and make a video of their names that my son could watch and put some fun music to it so it'd be reinforcing. I ended up doing that, and it was so much fun that I gave it to all the kids as a Christmas present. And it became something that we would do every year, so now it's just the Christmas video that we give to his class. But the whole idea behind it was to get him to learn the kids' names. And I will tell you honestly, now he's in 5th grade, it's not until after I make that video at Christmas time that he learns all of the kids' names in his class. So I can't wait to get this app and use it with him right out the gate. I think it's really smart, Brad.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we really wanted to make basically what you said a much more simplified process for the parent.
Yes.
It's the parent, instead of taking a video and doing it themselves, we kind of made this wonderful, simple process. We have a beautiful character named Peek 2. He's a little baby giraffe that guides the children through the game and plays with them. He encourages them and celebrates when they get the correct answer.
Love
and I'm
it.
really seeing it live in the camp. It was the first time I got to see children on a larger scale interacting with the game in person. It was just wonderful to see people adopt it and to watch children help each other. It wasn't just one child staring at an iPad. It was his peers and other campers encouraging each other and playing together.
I absolutely love it. I think it's super duper smart. And the fact that it's free, bless you, bless you, bless you. We love this. Have you got other games that you guys are working on that you'll be able to tell us about later on?
Absolutely. We're going to make a suite of games around this personalized learning experience where we're using people's real-world images to enforce learning. So yes, we want to come up with many more games. There's already some on the drawing boards, and we'll hope to be executing them soon.
Well, I think it's really smart, and I think it's a great service for our community and for many other communities. I can see so many different people that could use this app. I can't wait to play this with my son.
Thank you so very much. This was wonderful.
Thank you. And please, whenever you get new apps, let us know. We'd be thrilled to have you back on the show.
That'd be great. I look forward to talking to you again soon.
All right. Thank you so much, Brad.
Bye.
Bye-bye. So there was Brad Albert. Wonderful. It's called NameGames. You can search it. It's on all platforms, and it's free. You have to love that. I cannot wait to do this with my son. I think it's one of the smartest things I've heard in a long time. We're going to take a break, and we're going to come back with more of the show, including healthy eating tips, so stick with us.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. ACT Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Graham-Pichet, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give. She is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT?
What did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, they wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
We're ready?
There you go, got it.
Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for our healthy eating tip of the week. And we know coming on the end of September here, and you know what happens then. I know if you've been to a store recently, you have seen all of the things that let us know that Halloween is upon us. And with Halloween comes the whole Halloween candy nightmare. We know that for our kids on the autism spectrum that, well, look, let's say this. We know that for all kids in general, eating a huge amount of sugar in a short period of time, it's not good for anybody, right? And then you top that off with all the artificial colors and all the artificial flavors, and you're setting yourself up for the potential for meltdowns and tantrums. It just is a reality. I find it fascinating, my friends who don't have kids on the autism spectrum, and they talk about, I don't know what happened. My child ate 10 pieces of Halloween candy, and then the rest of the day was completely circling the toilet because the behavior was just so bad. I don't know what happened. And I think to myself, are you kidding? You sit down and eat 10 pieces of candy, and then let's see if your behavior changes at all. I'm going to guess that it will. And maybe not for everyone. The stomachs are not one size fits all. Some people can handle it, some people can't. But imagine if you feel different after eating 10 pieces of candy and your energy is a little bit different. What is that like in a much smaller body with a much smaller weight? it's going to amplify the effects of it. So I'm going to put forward to you the idea that we get ahead of this, that you make your plan for Halloween and Halloween candy now in this last week of September. If you're going to give candy out at your house, that you make a decision to get a certain kind of candy that maybe nobody else in your house particularly loves. Let's face it, we all have favorites and things we don't love. So if there's something that you don't love, that's the thing you should get to give out at the door. And there are places to donate your leftover candy afterward. In fact, there are a lot of dentist offices that will give you money back for your candy, and they ship it overseas to troops to give them the opportunity to have a part of the holiday season. What a great thing to do when you get money back in your pocket. So don't leave that candy hanging around. Then for your child, for them trick-or-treating, you have lots of different options that are open to you. One of the things that we've been doing ever since my child was little, because my child doesn't have any sugar. That's just not something that he can do, and it has nothing to do with autism. It has to do with the fact that so many people in my family are diabetic that we don't want him to be diabetic as well. Plus, when he has sugar, when he's had a little bit of sugar, even if it's fruit sugar, it affects his yeast, which does play into all the different things that he has going on with autism. And we get our drunken elf. He literally acts as though he's been drinking, and he did that at the age of 2. You gave him too much fruit, and he was silly to the point where he couldn't walk. So we started having the Lego fairy, and because we wanted him to get something reinforcing for getting the candy, but we didn't want him to eat the candy. So he would go door to door, trick or treat. He would get his candy, and then he would leave his candy on the dining room table, and the Lego fairy would come in the night, take the candy, and leave a Lego for him. It worked well with Halloween, so we did it with other holidays. It made it easy for birthday parties. It made it easy when they did holiday celebrations at school, because the room mother would always be saying, I don't know what to do. I gave candy for the rest of the kids. I don't want to make your kid feel separate. And I'd say, give him the candy. But it's not as exciting for him. I would go, yes, it is, because he gets to trade it for Legos. He knows that the Lego fairy will come and make it all right. So that is what we did with him. I know other families that have traded it. You know, the princess fairy comes and brings different princess things. You can have whoever you want to come. And with older children, where you're not talking about the Lego fairy and the princess fairy, you can trade it for more appropriate healthy choices. So you can go to places that sell candy that doesn't have a great deal of sugar. And it has a little bit of sugar, but maybe not as much, and less artificial food coloring and artificial food flavors. I was at Sprouts last night, and they have a wide array of candy that you can have that is a much healthier choice. You still don't want to let them gorge on it, but even when you're doling out 10 pieces, if that's what you've decided is appropriate for your family, let's minimize the sugar, let's minimize the artificial food coloring and flavorings in those 10 pieces, right? You're going to be further ahead. And so they can get all the candy, and you can trade it out for what's appropriate. I know that most families, when the candy comes home, there's a sorting process where they sit down and say, you can have this, you can't have this because this isn't wrapped, we don't know who this came from. So already kids are in tune with the fact that I don't get to have all of this. But if they get to have something in place of it, it helps build flexibility, and it will make them happy. It's just as reinforcing to them, especially if it's something that they love. Stop and consider, what motivates my child? What would really be a big deal to them? And if you have to, sort the candy someplace else. When you're trick-or-treating, it's dark. Things go into the bag and they feel the weight of it. Do a switcheroo, do a magic trick. Say, you know, have your spouse or significant other distract them for a minute. You take the bag, run into the bathroom, trade out all the candy. They'll never know. Right? Or they'll only minimally know, and you won't have a big reaction. Be smart. Be healthy. Make the best possible choice for your child in the circumstance, so that you don't end up losing all of November to having your child participate in bad behavior, challenging behavior, because we didn't set them up for success. This is something we can take control of. This is the antecedent modification, right? We're getting there beforehand and changing some of the things that we're going to do. And then our kids will have a happy, safe Halloween, and the days afterward will be happy and healthy for us. That's our healthy eating tip for the week. Stick with us. We're going to be back after these messages.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills Assessment and Curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills Assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills Assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Autism Live. It's time for us to look at your answers to the question of the day. Our question today was, what fine motor skills do you need to work on? And this went for either you or your child, and we all have fine motor skills that we need to work on, right? So a lot of people wrote in and said that pencil grasp, I'm renting these lips today. Pencil grasp, the tripod grasp, and handwriting. That in particular, these are some fine motor things that you guys are struggling with. And I want to say to you that I am no stranger to this. But it's really important, I've been told, to identify what the crux of the problem is, right? Because there is the tripod grasp, right? And some of you wrote in specifically and said tripod grasp can't hold the pencil. We featured on the show a couple of weeks ago from TheraPro. You can find them online. They have more pencil grasp toys than I have ever seen any place in my life. It really is the Disneyland for pencil grasp. I can't say it today. Pencil grasp. For pencil grasp devices, and there are so many different ones. There are ones that are little dinosaurs for little boys who, are going to be excited by dinosaurs, and then there's really cool ones that have glitter and stuff, and that are all shiny and sparkly for girls. So I would look through that and see if there's something that you can't find that will be helpful and be reinforcing for the pencil grasp. But I would also tell you too that one of the tricks that the OTs use early on is that they take the crayons that the children are going to be coloring with, and they take off the wrappers, the little paper wrappers on the crayons, and they cut them really short so that they're really, really tiny. You can also do this with golf pencils. The only problem with golf pencils is that they're really thin, and sometimes that's not necessarily good for kids, but you can beef them up with a pencil grasp. But by making it short, it forces them to not be able to hold it this way and get things done. They really the only way you can hold something short is in the tripod grasp. And there are lots of exercises that are out there that are really great for the pincer grasp too, because at least one person wrote in and said, we haven't got to the tripod grasp because we can't do the pincer grasp first. You know, one of the first things that they tell all parents to do with really young children, whether they're on the spectrum or not, to develop the pincer grasp when you've got them in the high chair, is to give them like the O-shaped cereals that we always gave our kids, which, by the way, there are gluten-free versions of those that don't have sugar in them. But put those out on the tray, and then the kids have to pick them up. Another great thing, if it's not a choking hazard for the child, are raisins or something like that they want to eat that's really that they've got to pick up that way. They can't pick it up any other way. The hand is too big and it won't grasp it. So that's a way to get the pincer grasp under control. And then the tripod grasp, we've got to make holding a writing utensil reinforcing. But there are all kinds of things in the TheraPro that will help us to do that. But sometimes we think it's the tripod grasp that's holding the whole, gumming up the whole works, you know, when in fact it can be something else. I've shared before on the show that my son, we worked on the tripod grasp and it was all under control and that was working just great, and couldn't figure out why the handwriting was still so unbelievably atrocious, and ended up getting at least 3 years behind before we identified that the problem was really a visual motor problem. Oh my goodness, if I could have that time back, because it continues to kick our can, because as we say on this show, when your child gets behind, the older they get, the harder it is to catch up. So I now have a 5th grader, and I look at his handwriting compared to everyone else, and he is still probably 3 years behind, because in the meantime, he's been learning cursive writing, and there's all these other stuff that he's got to keep up with what's happening and get caught up from the years past. We're still plugging on it. We are still working on it, but it is evident to me. And how many times do experts come in and say this to me, and I still go, but it doesn't seep all the way through the thick skullature, that it has to be reinforcing. It has to be reinforcing. One of the things that we just saw the dial move substantially, we're nowhere near caught up, we saw the dial move substantially. He has a planner. And I had gotten him a phone because I was going to have him just type in what he had to do as assignments into his phone. And then I backtracked on it and said, no, we're going to try one more year with the planner because I really want him to be able to do the planner. I don't know why I want him to be able to do the planner, because there are no adults that I know anymore that have the planner unless they're doing a wedding. Everybody does it on their phone. But still, I want him to be able to do the planner so that he knows how to do it. Next year, we'll move entirely to Outlook on the phone. But for this year in 5th grade, I wanted to give it one more college try, but we couldn't read his handwriting. He would write something and I would have no idea what it was, which, by the way, was very reinforcing for him because he was skinning out of some homework because we couldn't read it. And so first we cut that off at the pass last year, and the teacher started letting us know what the homework was so that he couldn't skinny out of it, right? So he wasn't getting a paycheck for writing badly. But then this year I upped the ante and said that, you know, his favorite thing is he comes home from school and he wants to take a break. I want a break before I have to do my homework. And the deal that I made was, if you come home and I can clearly read your homework, and you know how they do with handwriting that they say the 3 lines that you write on, anything that dips down below like a G or a Y, that's in the dirt. And that if the letter itself is in that first little area before the dots, that is in the grass. And if it's a letter like the H, where the loop in the H or the top in the H, the smokestack in the H goes up further above the dotted line, that's in the sky. That's one of the ways that they teach children now. So you put it, that letter has to go in the dirt and the grass and the sky, or it goes in these two, or it only goes in this one. So we went back over that again, and I said, if your letters are in the right thing, and if it's supposed to go into the dirt, it goes into the dirt, and if it's supposed to go into the sky, it goes in the sky, but if it's supposed to only be in the grass, it only stays in the grass. If you do that, just in the place where you do your homework, then you get a break. And if it isn't that way, you don't get a break. And that is reinforcing enough for him that he has been doing it on a daily basis. We're going to spread that out to other things. But I encourage you, figure out what is reinforcing enough for them to be able to work on the handwriting. I know that there's a wonderful program that's out there right now, very prevalent in the schools, called Handwriting Without Tears. And I think that that's a very useful thing, but our kids often need more. And it has to be super duper reinforcing. So, I love, somebody wrote in and said, handwriting, my 5-year-old just started kindergarten and he absolutely hates, all in caps, writing. It takes a ton of reinforcement and or HOH just for him to write a letter. And I would say to you, keep on plugging, give the ton of reinforcement, do it, but also check the other things. Check, is everything else going according to plan? Are the fine motor skills there to do the tripod grasp? Were the fine motor skills there to do the pincer grasp? Is there, are they having the right pencil? Go to TheraPro, check out the pencils that they have there. And is it that there is another problem? Like, are they having problems sitting up? Is it a gross motor, core strength problem? Or is it a visual? If I had it to do over again, you guys, I would go and take him to the visual doctor when he was a kindergartner and have saved all that time. I know it's not all of your children's problems, but make sure you've ruled that out, especially if your child is bumping into things, if your child is struggling with being able to steer a bicycle or is still not able in kindergarten to ride a two-wheeler, but that they can, do the pedaling on a tricycle, but they can't do the two-wheeler. I'm trying to think what some of the other, but handwriting is a big, big sign that something may be going on visually. Make sure that you check it out. Other people who wrote in, somebody in particular who wrote in patience, when I ask him to touch his nose, we're talking about fine motor. When I ask him to touch his nose, he touches his mouth, cheek, knees, toes. He gets desperate to get the reinforcer. I would suggest to you that maybe you're moving too fast, that make sure that when we're doing these things, that you don't go too fast. So if you're teaching nose, just do nose. We call it errorless learning. There's no wrong answer. Make sure you're using the model prompt, which was our jargon of the day. So if you're saying touch your nose, right? We're only going to do touch your nose until we're 100% sure that you got touch the nose 100% of the time. So you do touch the nose, and I start out and I prompt for it. Touch your nose. Yay! You get the reinforcement. Yoo-hoo-hoo-hoo-hoo. Right? And then I'm going to fade that. So I might say touch your nose, and I go like I'm going to, and then they do it. Yay! And then the next time I don't do it at all. If I have more trouble, I'm going to physically prompt them to do it. Touch your nose. Yay! Right? And then I'm going to fade that and keep doing it until they're getting it right every time, right? Then stop doing the nose and go to touch your cheeks. And I know you're probably thinking, my child already knows how to do all this. Yes, they do. But if they're getting confused and you're saying touch your nose, then what they've learned is they just want me to touch a body part. I'll touch them all and eventually I'll get it right. And that's not what we want them to learn. We want them to be able to differentiate between nose and cheeks, because then that means receptively they understand what touch your nose is and what touch your cheeks is. They can differentiate between the two. So we do the errorless learning. First we teach just the nose. Then we teach just touch your cheeks, okay? And we're going to model prompt, right? And we're going to physically prompt if we need to, and we're going to fade those until we say touch your cheeks, and they can do that, right? Now we're going to do the hard part, where we're going to start to include nose and cheeks together. And in the beginning, your child doesn't know, because they just know, they say blah, 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 blah. I touch something, I get a treat. But this is where the real learning comes in this moment. So you say to your child, touch your nose, and you maybe wait a second, but then you physically, you're going to do the prompt, the model prompt for yourself. See if they get it. Right, they get it. Oh, right, you just want me to touch my nose now. Great. And then the next one you do, touch your cheeks. Touch your cheeks. Okay, right? So they begin to pair, nose means this and cheeks means this. But slow, go slow. If they're getting to the point where they're frustrated because they want to get to the reinforcement, it means often we're going too fast. We don't want to make them frustrated. Slow it down, and you'll get success. You will. It will take longer than you think. That's the tough part. But you'll get there, and once you get there, they'll have it, and it will be wonderful. You'll still need to exercise that muscle for a while until it's completely theirs forever and maintains itself, but you will get there. Somebody else says eating with utensils. Yeah, especially for our kids that are working on the fine motor skills. It's tough because they would rather use their hands than use the utensils. Just make it really reinforcing, super duper reinforcing, modeling it, make it fun at the dinner table. You can make it like a game that, you put grapes in a bowl and you give them a spoon and say, we're going to have a race, you and I, and you have to, one at a time, get the grapes. And don't even worry about feeding, right? But, I'm going to get a grape with a spoon and I'm going to put it over here. And the first person, make it like Minute to Win It. The first person who gets their grapes in the bowl wins whatever. Make it exciting to use the utensils. And then eventually you can put the component about getting it up to their mouth. My son is old enough now that he'll tell me, that for the longest time, he goes, why would I want to use the fork when half of it fell off the fork when it, before it got to my mouth, whereas if I used my hand, it made it to my mouth. Well, that makes a certain amount of sense, right? So we just make it reinforcing enough for them. Oh, I see. She wrote in HOH, hand over hand, going into visual motor problem and TheraPro. Thanks so much. I'm so glad that you're watching, and I'm glad that because I was HOH. What is that? Hand over hand. Get it. I got it. Awesome. But I would look into the visual motor just to be sure. Just to be sure, check and see if your insurance covers the testing to be done, and find somebody who is qualified to do the testing with a 5-year-old. That might be the tricky part, but worth it. So worth it. If I had it to do over again, I would do that. Okay, we have to go now. I'm late for the A word. This is the amazing ongoing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders, and it follows a little boy, Jack Riley, who has he's been diagnosed with autism at the age of 2, and his family is progressing through their early intervention. So let's take a look at what Jack Riley's up to this week. This is the A word.
I know a cute little blue-eyed boy, and his name is Jack. Jack Riley. He got a big, warm, blue-eyed soul that makes your heart beat fast. Exciting. I say Jack, Jack, Jack is my buddy. Jack is my buddy. Everybody around is so down with Jack.
Jack. Oh, that was okay. Try again. Go over there and walk back to her again. Jack Riley, come back and walk nicely to her. Walk nicely. Oh, yeah, high fives! Yay! You did it! She's so happy.
So you guys are doing more programs trying to incorporate sister?
Yes, trying to have them tolerate being around her and practicing having them engage in the same activity. For his target right now is 2 minutes, so we're hopefully trying to increase the time. So she's going to be around forever, so we do want him to get used to being around her and accepting that she will get into his stuff every now and then, or all the time.
We're gonna do nice playing with Lainey, okay? We're gonna do it 5 times, alright? Alright, so you put on a piece and then Lainey Grace can put one on. Yay! Look, you get your first axe. Good job, buddy. We're gonna keep going. That was excellent. Okay, Lainey's turn.
Here you go.
Good job. Okay, Lainey. Okay, I'll help your sister. Yes, a potato head.
Wait, your turn.
Good job. Should we put the ear on Lainey? Purpose of outings that we go on with our kids is to have them get exposure to the community, and we go with them to assist the parents and to model for them how to redirect inappropriate behaviors when they do happen, how to even prompt the kids to interact with other kids, so when they do go out and we're not there, it's a lot easier for them, and it just becomes more natural for the parents and the kids.
Usually I'm pretty on edge at a park when he walks up to a group. I never know what he's going to do. Sometimes it's imagined, and then sometimes he justifies it.
Welcome back. That was the A Word. You can watch this entire series on their very own YouTube page, and I really want to encourage you to use this series as a reference point. If you're at a place with your child, go in there and search, and it gives you an idea. I think it really humanizes what happens. I have said from the beginning, I so wish that we had access to this when we were in the early years, but it's really good for me even now to process some of the things that we went through. When your child is diagnosed with autism, I don't need to tell you guys this who are parents that are watching, it changes the trajectory of what you thought was going to happen. And there's an emotional component to it, and there's a financial component to it, and every other, we were talking about the Disney guest assistant pass earlier, and we would go to Disneyland and I would have an expectation of what it was going to be like because you see the pictures of what it's like for everybody else, but almost nothing in your life is what you thought it was going to be. And different people get on board at different times and go, okay, well, then I'm going to move into acceptance and I'm going to do something about this, right? But sometimes that means you didn't really get to process it fully. And my husband and I talk about that all the time because I think that sometimes the men, not always, I don't want to overgeneralize, but a lot of the times the men take longer to process it in the beginning to come to terms with it, whereas the moms get into action a little bit earlier. But what that ends up being sometimes is that on the flip, the men have gotten their acceptance under control, and that later on as the moms, we have to process some of what we went through. And I will tell you that the A word is like therapy for me, that I watch it and I go, oh gosh, yes, that happened to us. Yes, and we are okay, and it is all right, and we survived, and our life is great now, and that was hard. And it really helps me to go through and language it for myself. And it's actually been good for my son in some ways too, for us to have an ability to talk about, okay, so this is why this was happening, and why people were coming to the door, because he thinks that every kid had that, and they didn't. I wish that every kid with autism had it. That's among the things I wish. So I encourage you to watch this series in the way that it helps you. Use it as a tool, as one of the many tools in your tool belt, whether it's that you need to forward it to your mother-in-law and say, you need to watch this, because you need to see that this is not the picnic in the park that you think it is. I was a really well-intentioned person in my life who said, you're so lucky that your child has autism because you get all this free childcare. Yes. And I said, excuse me? And she was talking about all the therapists who come and give you free childcare, so you're just so lucky. Yes. And I wish that I had had this back then to show her and go, yes, this is how lucky I am. And she was right to a certain extent, how lucky I was that because I had those people coming to my home, but not in the way that she meant. Not in the way that she meant. In any case, I hope you'll use the A word in the way that works for you, but it is an amazing resource, an amazing tool. All right, we are going to take a break. You guys have written in, somebody said they have a planner. Because I said earlier, I don't know any adults who have planners. If I write it down, I tend to remember it better. I think that's true. I will tell you that I am a recent convert, that they have all said to me that I need to be on Outlook and I need to detail things on Outlook so that I can share them with other people, because I like to think that I'm moving through the world by myself. And now I'm doing this collaborative thing where other people want to know what's happening. It's a strange phenomenon. I was the keeper of the whole schedule for so long, and I had graphs, and I had a clipboard that hung on a hook in the kitchen, and it held my schedule and my husband's schedule and my son's schedule and all the therapist schedules and all the important phone numbers and the doctor appointments and the OT appointments and the IEP and the BIP and all of those things. And now I work with a group of people who are like, you need to tell us what's happening. Oh my goodness. So I'm thrilled that some people are still using a planner. Forgive me. They remind me here on a regular basis that I'm out of touch, but maybe they're a little out of touch too. People still use planners. I'm thrilled. Okay, in any case, I'm using the Outlook, and it is kind of fun, I have to say, and I am keeping track of things on my smartphone too. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back and look at some of the things that you guys have written in through the long weekend. Stick with us.
Hi, I'm Bryce Myler, and I'm the Contracts Director for the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. I've been here for about 5 years. CARD has several employees with many years of insurance experience, dealing with insurance, dealing with pre-authorizations, dealing with discovering whether there's coverage or not. So we have more experience than any ABA provider that I've ever come across. So for a prospective client, somebody that may be interested in, ABA therapy and what CARD has to offer, we have a special 800 number, and you call that number. They will talk to you about what we have to offer, how ABA works. He'll ask you for the front and back of your ID card, and then we check to see if you do or do not have coverage. If you have coverage for ABA therapy, we try to do whatever we can to set it up where we can bill for you and you don't have to fight with the insurance company every month to get your claims paid. For California residents, we recently did a series of insurance trainings all over the state, and you can click on the link below to watch pretty much the full presentation. It has a lot of information, how you can get your insurance company to comply with what they're supposed to do, understanding the networks, and many other valuable pieces of information.
Welcome back to Autism Live. I want to start with some of the questions that you guys have been writing in. Somebody wrote in and said that they're having trouble watching us today. A couple of suggestions that they tell me: refresh the page, see if that works. Also, because we are video format and we do a lot of things with video, it is advisable to have a hardwire connection. If you're having trouble on a wireless, if you switch to a hardwire connection, that you may be better off. Sometimes it's just it could be the age of the computer. And even I know in my home, most days on my old rickety computer, I'm just fine on wireless. But if it's windy, I'm sorry to bring it to such a level of like non-IT, but I can attest to the fact that on my old computer, if it's windy, I have trouble on that day. So try some of the different things there, see if you can hardwire in and if that helps you. And I'd love to know if something you do works, because I'm sure you're not the only person who is struggling with an issue. And thank you for writing in. We love to know when you guys have concerns about being able to watch the show. We're here to be viewed by you, and if you can't see it for some reason, we do want to know. Okay, got a question that came in recently. Hi Shannon, I'm starting biomedical treatment with my son. He is 5, and to be honest, I'm so afraid of hurting him. It is overwhelming, all of the labs and the results and the treatments. Any recommendation? He is on a GF, CF, SF diet and taking a lot of supplements, but I am afraid of medications. He is having ABA right now. He has 15 hours a week. The next month he is going to be having 20. The reason they increase the hours is because the BI, I'm thinking you mean the behavior intervention, are going to school, but I do not think it is enough. I have Kaiser and my only provider could be Easter Seals. How can I get more hours? Thank you. And then they additionally wrote in and said that they're not going to be able to listen to the live show because they're working, but they'll check it when they get home. Thank you. So I want you to know, let's start with the 15 versus the 20 and the Kaiser situation first. I think it's great that they're giving you 20 as opposed to 15. And you have a 5-year-old, right? That's what you said. 5, right? I think that you said 5 somewhere. No, I'm not sure then. It doesn't say what the age of the child is. No, he's 5. There it is. He's 5. Okay, so depending on how much ABA your child had before, and your child is going to school, 20 hours might be what is appropriate. We know that if a child is before school age 3 and 4, we would be asking for more than that. We would absolutely be asking for 40. I don't know what your day is like, and I don't know how much your child can handle. I would certainly make the case for pushing it. that if your child didn't get a lot of ABA therapy before, you have more to catch up on. If they've just been started on it, if I were you, and I'm speaking as a parent, not as an expert, I would be pushing it and getting as much as you possibly can. Because we know that you're still in a window when you can have the best possible results, but you'd want to be in that window of what's shown to be most effective, which is 30 to 40. It may be that an expert's going to look at your child though and say, no, your child at school age, and they've got a good program at school that's being implemented, and they're getting all the social stuff done at school. All they need is 20 hours. But I would want to have an expert determine that for you that is not tied to the funding source. And I know I say that a lot, and I hope you guys understand what I mean, that if you're going, if the school has hired a doctor, let's say, to do the assessment, and the school is going to pay for the services, and the provider is paid for by the school, you don't have an impartial third party. I would love to think that those people who are hired by the school will be impartial and will tell you the truth. But the fact of the matter is, you're not paying their salary, and there are tough economic times, and I just don't have that much faith in mankind. And especially when it's where my child is concerned. So that's the cynic in me, and yet there are a lot of people who will tell you that they've been given a prescription by somebody that wasn't appropriate. And it isn't just in the school setting that happens, it's with insurance settings as well, and even within the regional center system that we have here in the state of California, that there are many ABA providers who, for whatever reason, whether verbally or in writing, I'm not sure, feel that they owe it to the regional center to not overextend them. And I've also, when I have talked to some of these people and said, how on earth can you justify writing a prescription that you know is inappropriate? Because I'm sorry, anybody who's writing a prescription for 20 hours of ABA therapy for a child, I don't care how high functioning they are. If they are 3 years old and they have a diagnosis of autism, they can have a bunch of skills. The prescription should be between 30 and 40 hours at 3 years old. And yet there are people who will write a prescription for 15 hours. And then when you ask them upon interviewing them, why would you do that? And they say, well, we know that the regional center really can't afford to fund the 30 or the 40 hours, and we don't want it to be a heartbreak for a parent and have the parent spending their life and their time and their money on getting lawyers to sue them. That just seems a waste of time. Thank you for thinking for me. Thank you for deciding for me that you don't want to even tell me what the full prescription is for my child because of what you think it's going to do to my mental state. Thank you so much. Now please step aside. You're not on my team, is my feeling on it. Right? And you might feel differently about it. But since you're writing and saying, how can I get him more hours? I think that really means looking at getting an outside assessment done, which can be expensive. And your insurance isn't going to pay for it. And if it's Kaiser, more than likely, if you go to them and say, I want a second opinion, they're going to say, why would you want to do that, right? So you have a couple of different choices here. You can, if you've got the money, or you can go and do that if you've got the money, or if you don't have the money, you can apply for a grant from somebody like Act Today. It's going to take a while to get the grant and then take a while to get the assessment, and you're going to lose all that time. But that is an avenue that you could go. Because it's Kaiser, and because Kaiser just did a $9 million settlement saying that they were going to pay all of the families who went and got ABA therapy outside of their service even before it was legally mandated. So Kaiser knows that they have had legal issues before in the past and stand in a place where they could have legal issues again. What I would do is call the Kaiser Ombudsman. You have a Kaiser representative who is just for you to be able to talk to about the type of treatment that you're getting. And I would contact that person, and I would be as nice as I could be and say to them, look, I feel that this is wrong. Based on, and if you want the studies, let me know and we'll email you links to the studies, right? So be very informed when you have your meeting with the ombudsman, because they're going to talk about it with other people, right? And you're going to go in and you're going to go on a fishing expedition. I really feel that, what my child needs is, and you decide the number. Is it 35 hours that you feel that your child can have, and that you've only been getting 15, that you've been getting 20? Here are the studies that show that this is what's effective for the best possible outcome, and that you would like an answer in writing from them of, will they pay for a second opinion, or you'll be forced to go, and you're very nicely going to say, I really would love it if you guys would pay for the second opinion, because I feel like the original prescription is wrong based on these studies. If you guys won't pay for it, I guess it's horrible to think of, but I guess I'm going to be forced to go and do that on my own, and be very physically vulnerable when you say that, so that you're not threatening. It's not that thing of it, I will go and get it on my own, right? Just, I don't know what I'll do, but I'll be forced to do that on my own, and I really don't want to do that. But I really feel like my child needs 35 hours. Try that first and see if you can't convince them to do it. If they won't, see if they'll pay for the second opinion. And if they won't do that, then you're going to have to consider whether you want to go ahead and do the second opinion. It's possible that if you're really super nice with that ombudsman, that you'll be able to bump your hours up to 30, 35. I don't think that's unreasonable to think, especially when they know that everybody's getting litigious, and that they're, it just cost them $9 million for not doing the right thing. And if you go in prepared with studies, then you're going to have a potential lawsuit for them under providing for your child. They're not going to want to do that. So that would be my advice, to try that out. Let me know how that works. There are, as I said, other avenues. Now, going back to the biomedical stuff. We are going to be doing a week of biomedical next week, and we already have a couple of biomedical experts who are going to be with us. And they will tell you that there are many things that are out there that can help our kids, but it's case by case. It is individual by individual. So first you get the labs, which is scary just because they're so expensive. And then you make the choices of what you want to do. I will say to you, as a parent, that I am the most cautious parent that there is. I drive the medical professionals insane because I'm not willing to do things as quickly or as much as they would like for me to do. I don't know honestly what that has cost my child, but I am extremely cautious because, like you, my number one thing is I will not do anything to harm my son. I applaud people who are willing to, try things out and test things out, and the courage that takes. And I can't imagine it because I don't have it. I do not have the courage to do that. I know that some of the things that have worked with my son worked because other people tried them and saw that they worked. So but I can't do it. I can't do it. So we are extremely cautious in my family. We do all kinds of research before we start something. We talk to other parents. We look at case studies about who and why. We look at the labs to see why it's justified for our child. We don't try multiple things at the same time so that we can isolate something. We don't make any changes to his diet when we're trying a new medicine. We keep records of what happens once we start the new medicine. We mark on the calendar, started it on this date, and on any of the days in between, if something happens, if there's a change in the behavior, we take note of it. And that is how we handle it. There are many people, I would say, make friends. We've had her on the show before, Joanne Aller. We should have her again now that school's back in session. And I call her my biomedical mom, my biomed mom, because I can go to our doctor and I can talk about things and he puts things a certain way. I got to hear it from a mom. I got to hear it from a mom, and I got to hear it in layman's terms, and I got to hear it from other moms who've tried these things. So I go to my support group, my TACA local support group, and I ask them questions about, did you see this reaction? Did you try this? Did you do this? So that is where I come from to quiet my fears. And there have been many things that we just didn't do, that we just didn't try, because on researching it, my gut said, I don't know. And if I don't know, I am 100% clear with myself that my child is not a petri dish, that I need to be reasonable with his time and with his efforts. But that is how I personally feel. Having said that, though, some of the things that we have done, we did the methyl B12 shots, and it made such a huge difference. We did do 2 different runs of diflucan with some other things to go along with it. It made a huge difference, a huge difference. Make sure you're working with somebody that you trust. Make sure that you have a way to call them 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, or one of their representatives, so that you are never left with a reaction that you don't know what to do about. And follow your gut, go slow, and do your research. But there is some really good biomedical help out there. There is a conference next week for MedMaps, and we are planning on focusing on biomedical intervention. So we'll be talking more about this next week. But good luck to you with Kaiser and with Easter Seals, and I would appreciate it when you do watch this. I know you're working, but when you do watch it, let us know what ends up happening. I'll be very interested to hear. We're going to take a break and come back with more of your questions after these messages. Stick with us.
When Maddie was diagnosed, I'll be honest, I was very ignorant on what autism was. I knew that autism was basically something that hit boys at the age of 2 to 3. They shut down, and sometimes you think of the typical Rain Man movie. And with Maddie, she was doing all the same signs and symptoms of a typical child with autism spectrum disorder.
Stand up.
Didn't even acknowledge us coming into the room. She had barely any eye contact. She didn't interact with her sisters. She didn't really do anything. She just basically lined up her toys, and that was about it. We have a team of 7 volunteers, or 8 now. We have 8 volunteers, including my husband and I. And I'm the team leader, and so I do all the curriculum and get everything ready each week.
Jana was downstairs until 11 o'clock at night working on curriculum, going through 2 different textbooks. And then we, as a group, meet on Monday nights, and we would go through what the curriculum was from Jana. And a lot of times we would go, well, how exactly do you do that? How do you sit her at the table and do this trial base? Well, what Skills has done for us, it's taken that away from Jana trying to figure out the curriculum for one. She can go down, or even our laptop, and she can sit down, and through all these questions, it comes up with the different programs.
At least for me, it was a relief off my shoulders. I was worried that I might be missing something, missing a curriculum that maybe she needs to know, where Skills, they have every possible thing your child needs to know from 0 to 7. They have a program for that.
What noise is this?
Every program that we did with her, I knew it was specific for what she needed to learn. Because before Skills, it was a lot of, okay, well, is that really age appropriate for a 2-year-old? You know, because it's not generalized. It's anywhere from 0 to 7. This is what your child needs to know in most manuals you'll find. But for this, okay, yep, she should be learning this. And no, she's not 4 yet. She doesn't need to know that yet.
We are so fortunate that Jana was able to attend a conference put on by CARD that opened the door for Skills, and that there's no looking back for us.
We started using the program in November, and it seemed like by January something just clicked, and she has completely kind of came out of her fog that she was in for quite a while.
I have never read a documented case on any child that has not benefited anything from applied behavior analysis, and now with this new Skills and being, like the E version of ABA, I can't imagine that it doing anything harmful to their child. It's nothing but exponential growth for us.
To see her now, it just blows us away. I mean, we call her our little miracle child because in 7 months' time, she's just blossomed into this normal, functioning child. And suddenly, we joke about it all the time, like suddenly we have twins.
If you're even thinking about doing it, do it. Because the absolute worst thing you can do is do nothing at all. And even if you use this program and it's just a single mom or a single dad working in the evenings with their child, this program is going to benefit them. It's going to show you where they are, it's going to show you where they need to go, and it's going to show you what skills and how to get there. It is an online book on how to help recover your child.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're covering some of the different things that you guys have written in. Somebody wrote in today, autism team is kicking my butt lately. They are nice and but talk to me like I don't know my child. Just so tired of trying to get them to listen. Come to me, have the ear hug. Yes, and you are entitled to feel that way. That's what I want to say to you first of all, is that in amongst everything else you have to do, like life isn't interesting and compelling and challenging enough. Talk to any of your friends that have neurotypical children. They will tell you life is challenging, right? But then on top of that, you've been tasked with trying to move a mountain to help your child. It's a noble, noble task that you're participating with. And not only that, you have to deal with a bunch of people who think they know what they're doing and they think they know what's best for your child, and have to listen to them talk to you with really interesting grins on your face, on their face. And you have to grit your teeth and bear it. And some days, I'm sorry, it's too much. Some days you want to go, really? Really? So you are not alone, but you're doing a good job. You're doing a really good job. And it's really important for you to get reinforcement for that, and that you do something really nice for yourself today. Because I hear you on the you're tired, that you're tired of trying to convince them to do the right thing for your child, is what I'm hearing. And that is a very tiring thing. So you got to rejuvenate, you got to refresh your batteries, you got to do something nice for yourself that isn't, when we say, oh, well, I'm going to do something nice for myself, and a lot of times it ends up being something nice for your child, that you're along for the ride. I need to beg you to do something nice for yourself today. Your child will get the benefit of it. They absolutely will, because you will come back refreshed in a way that you weren't before. But yeah, it's challenging. The team and people talking to you like you don't know your child. One of the things that I used to say all the time at meetings that I would be at with for IEP meetings in the school district, and dealing with all the many different meetings that we had to have, is that I would say to them, I'm not an expert in autism, but I am an expert in my child. I now, with you, admit that I am not an expert in my child either. But for the purposes of that meeting, it made a certain amount of sense. There's no one who's a better expert at my child than I am, right? There is no better expert than I where my child is concerned. I'm not consistent with my expertise where my child is concerned, but as I said, we don't have to tell them that. And you can say that to them. You can say, and another thing that I would say all the time is, I am a valid member of this team. And then they immediately would go, well, of course. Well, of course. And then I would follow that up with, then why wasn't I included in this discussion? Then why aren't you listening to what I'm talking about? Then why aren't we doing this? Because as a valid member of this team, I'm saying that it's this and that it needs to be this. Why is there resistance to that? And following up on that kind of stuff, but just having the things that stop them in their tracks. I always love when you're at those meetings too, when they go, well, and here's the crux of it all, is that at some point, someone will say the thing that they're not supposed to say. Well, we have to think about what's good for all of the kids. Yes, that's the truth. That's the bottom line. And that's when I would say, yes, exactly. That is your job to think about what's best for all of the children. It is my job to think about what is best for my child. And actually, strike that, because we don't say best, we say what's appropriate. We have to think about what's appropriate for all the kids. Yes, we have to think about what's appropriate for our individual child. And whenever they're trying to guilt you with, oh, well, this child, that's lovely. I'm sure that their parents are advocating for them. I'm here to advocate for my child. And it stops them. It stops them. By the way, if you can ever get them on tape, saying something like that, having them saying, well, we have to consider what's appropriate for all of the children at an IEP meeting, it just go cha-ching, because it's game over. That's not appropriate. That is not appropriate. That's why it's called an individualized education program plan, right? And as I said last week, when you're conversing with these people and they're kicking your can, best thing to do is to get into the habit anytime you have a conversation with anyone, because a lot of times, you're not in a place where it's appropriate for you to have a tape recorder. You have the conversation, you run past the, OT in the hallway, and they say something to you, just get in the habit of sending back the email and saying, as per our conversation today, when we were in the hallway and you said X, Y, and Z, I just want to clarify, blah, 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 because you're making a record of what gets said. Now, eventually, I've stopped doing that, quite honestly, because, we're at the point where I'm fortunate that my son doesn't need as many services. But, every once in a while I have to tighten up my game because something's going wrong. But I'm telling you that the best thing you can do today is to go do something nice for yourself. You deserve it. Everybody else gets a treat, everybody else gets a paycheck, and you cannot keep advocating for your child and trying to convince people who don't want to hear what you're saying unless you get some sort of reinforcement. So you're due. I'm begging you. And if somebody gives you a hard time, you say, no, I'm sorry. I was ordered by the crazy woman I'm watching on the internet. She said I had to do something nice for myself. Put it on me. My shoulders are big. I can handle it. But go do something nice for yourself because you have earned it and you won't be able to keep going. It will be good for everyone. And then you'll come back with your batteries refreshed, and you might come back with a sense of humor. So when somebody says something completely idiotic, instead of going immediately to burn, you can laugh and go, okay, that is just so typical of them, right? I was talking to somebody earlier today about that phrase that was big in the 70s. My dad had this posted over his desk. It's really hard to soar like an eagle when you have to fly with turkeys. And unfortunately, as an autism parent, you're going to fly with some turkeys from time to time. That's okay. Keep a sense of humor about it and recognize the turkeys for where they are, right? You are an expert in your child. You have more right to have an input than any of them as to what happens. And there's no question, you're legally entitled to it. You are going to get it. So you can laugh at them. And it's much more enjoyable. All right, we are going to take a break and come back with more of your questions. Stick with us.
The Institute for Behavioral Training provides courses in applied behavior analysis for the treatment of autism. Access IBT e-learning videos on the move and learn at your own pace.
I'm going to talk a little bit about intensity of
IBT e-learning makes any location your classroom on the go.
So our objectives for today are to really learn what is autism and how is it diagnosed.
Get professional guidance with IBT face-to-face training. IBT face-to-face training courses prepare you to effectively implement ABA-based interventions. Choose between small group and one-to-one instructions. Earn BCBA supervision hours via one-to-one video conferencing.
So I had a chance to review your BIP today. You know what? It looked really good. You did a good job with that.
IBT, continuing education courses. Earn credit through webinars, conferences, article reviews, and e-learning videos. You can learn more at ibehavioraltraining.com. IBT, 360 degrees of ABA training.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We're answering the questions that you guys have written in recently. Somebody went in and said, where can I find parents to talk with? And of course, there are all kinds of places. So we're going to list off some of them, but it really kind of depends on where you are and what kind of format you want. So let's talk about some of the different things that you can do. I really recommend TACA, TACAnow.org, and going there and seeing, is there a chapter that is nearby where you are? Because if there is, they will have regularly scheduled meetings like once a month where you can go and meet people, but they will also a lot of times have a forum on which you can talk, and it might be on Yahoo, it might be on Google groups, it could be on Cafe Mom, but then you can choose, do I need to talk to somebody in person, or do I need something that's a little bit more regular? The TACA group that I belong to, I've only been to one meeting in all the years. It's pathetic, but it just wasn't easy for me. It just wasn't one of the ways that I could connect really well. The one meeting I went to, very reinforcing, but it just was really difficult. And yet, I have the daily digest that comes. So once a day, I get an email that tells me everything that's happening on the forum. And I used to live and breathe and die by that forum, that I would look at it every day, and it was like my daily newspaper, that I would know what was going on around the area. I would hear from parents. I might see a topic and go, that really doesn't have anything to do with us right now, but I would read it for information and sometimes save it for later on, because there were things that had to do with teen years, there were things that had to do with biomedical things. But I also have the ability on a daily basis to ask a question, and I had the ability to give support as well. So when somebody would write something in and say, hey, you know, one of the things that my child is supposed to do is take a charcoal pill every day, and I don't know how to do that, I could write in and say, oh, this is what they told us to do about getting a charcoal pill taken, which made it work for us. So I could be a part of the process. I am ashamed to admit, but I will admit, that I don't get to read my daily digest every day anymore, because I'm much more reading other things to know what's going on globally instead of what's just happening in my neighborhood. But I think it would be better for me personally as a parent if I was reading it more. I certainly was on there this week looking at what everybody else was saying about the guest assistance pass from Disneyland. And when I've needed it, I've run to it. But I should be doing service too, and giving information and reading it and giving information back. So it's a great way to connect. And those TACA groups are springing up, more and more of them around the country. If you go to Autism Speaks and autismspeaks.org, and you click on the resources tab and go to your state and click on your state, it will give you a really long, extensive list of a bunch of resources that are available in your area. And in the beginning, it gives you sort of an index, and it'll say ABA providers, and it'll have a number in parentheses that it might say 252. That there's 252 ABA providers in your state. And then, you know, it'll have other services and doctors and things like that. And it'll include support groups too. So if you go down to that, you know, then it will, you can pretty quickly see, okay, there's a meeting tomorrow at the Starbucks around the corner from me, and it'll tell you which group that it is. So if you want to do face-to-face and there isn't a TACA in your area, the next thing I would do is go to that autismspeaks.org, check out what those resources are for the parent support groups. But if you need something really immediately and you're not as concerned with the face-to-face, go onto Facebook and put in your little search bar autism, and then you can put whatever words you want after that, because there are so many groups that are you can put Autism Georgia. You can put autism challenging behavior. You can put autism teenagers in there, and you will see groups that pop up that you can subscribe to and give you a forum in which to speak to people. There's a group that I subscribe to that's Autism Mommies, and so I get a regular feed and I can participate just the way I do with my TACA group, and I can do that on my Facebook group. But again, you can go to Google Groups and search there, and you can go to Yahoo Groups and search there and put in the terms. You know, there are people who just want to talk about ABA in terms of autism, and they're the Autism ABA. There are many of them. There are autism cooking groups that are, some of them are GFCF, some of them are the paleo diet, and some of them are Feingold. You know, it really depends on what you want and what format you want. And some of them ask that you submit before you can be a part of the group, because they don't want people coming in and soliciting. I appreciate that, because I don't want to go in and get advertisements from people about different things. So in some groups, you know, that's great, but it takes a little longer because the moderator has to approve you so that you can be a part of the group before. And if you need an immediate answer to a question right away, sometimes that can be frustrating. But if you're just looking long term, I would get involved in a couple of those groups. I remember sitting down one day when my son was having therapy, and I was in the other room and I was listening and watching on the video monitor, and I just signed up for like 20 groups. And some of them I had to do so much work that I never ended up qualifying. Like I had to write an essay. I was thinking, who has time for that? What autism parent? And eventually I was like, I'm probably not going to get along with these people anyway, because if they have time to write an essay, I can't really relate. But other times they just ask for a sentence where you say, why do you want to be a part of this group? And I would say, I'm an autism mom. My child is however old he was at the time. I need people to talk to, whatever. There have been times where I've written to a group and said, I'm an autism mom, blah, 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 blah. My child is this. I also host this program, and I've gotten back lovely things saying, you're allowed to be in this group as a parent, but you are not allowed to be in this group as somebody who hosts a show, and please don't promote your show on here. And I've said, no problem. And I participate in those groups. So, just know that there are many, many, many groups out there. It just depends on what do you want. Do you want it to be a specific group? And somebody pointed out too, and this is a great one, myautismteam.com. We've had them before on the show. Eric Peacock, we've had him on. That's a great one that you can go to and you can connect. And you know who else is a great one is the Spot, is another place where, especially for our teenagers and young adults on the spectrum, they tell me that they really enjoy being on the Spot and having a way to connect there too as well. But my autism team, I really like that one because you have a way to connect with a whole bunch of different things besides just parents. So that's a really, really wonderful place to go. myautismteam.com. Okay, we're going to take a short break and we'll be back to finish out the show. Stick with us.
Torin. There's the two buddies.
I have a 7-year-old son who was diagnosed when he was 22 months old with PDD-NOS. That diagnosis was changed when he was 3 to a full autism diagnosis. There was a long period of time where he didn't sleep at all and all night long would bang his head and whoop. It was because he was in pain but couldn't tell us.
We're gonna back up. Showing the speed and grace of this guy.
CARD was one of the only programs that said it doesn't really have to be this way forever. Your child will make progress. We can show you. Just give us time. We started services with CARD when my son was 3.5. Shortly thereafter, my daughter was also diagnosed and started her immediately with services. And I'm pleased to say that I think she's doing exceptionally well and will probably lose her diagnosis in the next 2 years. We started with 3 therapists with my son, and he had actually a 46-hour program. And thankfully, through some of the behavioral training that CARD helped us with, he is back in school.
1 + 9 = woohoo!
He's sleeping at night. CARD has a very robust program. Things that we're working on right now that we could never work on before is learning to play the piano, learning to ride his bike. It just has given us back our quality of life. They focus on our family. What do we need to do to make it more functional? So we're very, very happy with the services, and we feel like we owe everything to CARD because they kind of gave us back our life. I have nothing but love for CARD, for sure.
Welcome back to Autism Live. We have so much that's going to be happening here this week and next week that I wanted to take a couple of minutes here at the end of the show. And I do want to acknowledge, too, that somebody has written in and said that they're going to do something nice for themselves this weekend, that they're going to the beach and Knott's Berry Farm, and I think that that's a wonderful thing. And I think that that's very exciting, and I'm glad that you're going to do that nice for yourself. And in any case, though, I want to talk a little bit about what's happening tomorrow, the rest of this week, and what's happening next week. So tomorrow on the program, we have Ask Dr. Doreen. Dr. Doreen Grandpichet will be here live answering your questions in real time. I've got a bunch of questions, but I'm especially going to be taking questions tonight. So if you have a question for Dr. Doreen Grandpichet, send them in starting now. You can do that either on the Facebook page or you can do it on the live feature, and we will get to a bunch of questions tomorrow. Then in the second half of the show tomorrow, during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy Allspaw Jackson will be here with me, and we have two incredible guests tomorrow. Two incredible guests. The first one is Vin DeBona, and you probably know Vin, although you may not recognize the name, or the name rings a bell for you. Vin has been one of the most influential people in television. He is the producer of the longest running hit show ever, America's Funniest Home Video. And he's produced many other shows, really changed the genre. And he has done a lot for our autism families over the years, a lot of things that nobody is aware of, but he's being honored this year by Act Today at their Denim and Diamonds banquet, and so he is going to be with us tomorrow, and it's very exciting. It's a thrill for me because if you're not watching America's Funniest Home Video with your children, I want to encourage you to try it. It gave us Sunday nights, and watching my child just giggle, we were able to teach him humor through watching that show. So I'm especially thrilled that Vin is going to be with us. And we also have a young man who's going to be with us in the second half of that show tomorrow that is an ambassador for autism on the spectrum himself, a remarkable young man. So he'll be with us the second half of Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy tomorrow. Then on Thursday, we've got some really exciting guests that are going to be with us. Julie Kornack, who has been on the show a couple of different times, is going to be coming in and talking with us about some really important legislation that's happening here in California about self-determination. There's a self-determination bill that's pretty important, and we want you guys to know about it. I tell you all the time, if you wonder why it's important that we talk about California legislation, it's because California is a leader in legislation, and where California goes, so go many of the other states and then other countries. So this is a very important bill, the self-determination bill. It's changed recently. We're going to go over what the changes are and why it's important to you and why you need to know about this, especially if you have, if you are on the spectrum yourself, or you have, excuse me, you have a child who is entering the teen years or about to enter adulthood. You're going to want to know about this. We also have joining us tomorrow a very special guest from Lecotech Toys. They are the place that decides what a rating is for a toy that has special needs. So you've seen in past years that fabulous toy guide that Toys R Us puts out that rates the toys and says this is good for this skill, to attain this skill. Well, it's Lecotech that reviews those toys and says that these are phenomenal toys. So they're going to be with us and talking about how they make those determinations and some exciting things coming up as we get ready for the holiday season with toys. Then a week from Wednesday, on Friday, we're still going to have Dr. Adele Nadowski and we'll have Dr. Jonathan Tarbox. But next Wednesday, as we go into Biomedical Week next week, we have a guest that we've never had on the show before. He's a very controversial gentleman, but we are going to have Dr. Andrew Wakefield. He's going to be Skyping in from London, and I know that you guys have some questions for Dr. Wakefield. This is an opportunity. He's going to be talking about a new documentary that he's a part of making, Who Killed Alex Sporticalis. We've covered this story of the young man who first was chained to his hospital bed for 13 days naked because the hospital officials couldn't figure out what to do with him when he was being self-injurious. And then later on, the tragic events that happened when his mother, along with his caregiver, murdered him and attempted to kill themselves, but were unsuccessful in killing themselves. But they did. Alex's life is over. And this is a documentary that does not hold any punches. Dr. Wakefield is a part of making this documentary, and he will be joining us to talk about that. But a wonderful, rare opportunity for you to ask Dr. Wakefield questions. That will be next Wednesday during Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. So wanted to give you that information. Dr. Wakefield, of course, at the forefront of the firestorm when the study that he did, that was the first indication that the MMR may have some repercussions, was discredited. And Dr. Wakefield will be with us a week from tomorrow. So a very interesting and controversial interview. We'll be excited to hear what Dr. Wakefield has to say. And much, much more that we're going to be covering this very next week. So it's a big week. We hope you're going to stay tuned, stay involved. I want to remind you what we started, and Emily's going to give you some different ways that you can get in touch with us. I want to remind you that we are going to be giving away, we've already given away a couple of Rokus within this show. There's a study that's being done, and they're asking for some of you who watch the show to be willing to, in exchange for, they're going to give you a free Roku. But you must be willing to answer some questions and participate in a focus group. And that's all you have to do to be able to be given a free Roku. We've given away several of them during this 2-hour time period. We still have more to give away. If you want a free Roku, then please get in contact with us here. Let us know. We will give them out on a first come, first serve basis. So if you are willing to participate and answer some questions, it means that you will need to watch our show and some other people's show on your Roku, and let it won't be us running the focus group, let the people who are running the focus group know what your opinions of being able to watch in that format will be. So you can write to us right there. Emily's got the address right there, and let us know as soon as possible. You don't want to miss the opportunity to get a free Roku. What could possibly be better than that? When you're done with it, you could gift it, but you must be using it when you're watching the show until the focus group is over, but it's expected to happen in the next month. So we want to move on this as timely as we possibly can. I want to take a moment to thank you. We weren't here for a lot of shows last week, and I didn't get a chance to tell you about meeting Mickey Dolans, but we will get to that sometime later on in the week. But we are back, and I'm feeling better, and that's a good thing. And for all of the rest of you who had migraines, oof, bad migraine week, right? In any case, we'll be back tomorrow. Ask Dr. Doreen. You won't want to miss that. Until then, please give your kiddos a hug from me. Bye-bye for now.